this on? Oh, it is on. Hi. Okay, we're going to get into this next panel now, which I am moderating. So let's see how this goes. It'll be fun. I may just like run around the room, pick up the energy a little bit for everyone instead of sitting up here. And so, yeah, everyone who's on this panel knows who they are. They should. So if you can come on up. So I'm actually going to do this a little bit, let's see what we got here, a little bit differently than the past panels and not ask you to all describe your programs, but answer, well, actually I am going to ask you to describe your programs, but by answering that question, just answer the question, how is, because first of all, I mean, as you guys know, as Matthew said, where's Matthew? There he is. Okay, so you said something really relevant to this panel on the last panel, which was that, you know, it's really hard to take the thing that worked for Code for America and just transplant it into another country and have it manifest in the same way. And so when we started Code for All, I think that was one of the biggest questions we had, and one of the, frankly, the biggest reasons that we were reticent to even launch an international program, which was we have no idea whether any of this stuff is actually relevant outside of the US. And when we finally did decide that we were going to have, you know, build Code for All, the first question we had to answer is what does a program look like that, you know, how much of what we put into our program is sort of embedded with American values that don't necessarily translate to other places, and how much of it is universal. And so I think we're still actually learning that. I also would say that a lot of what people think of as Code for America as being like the Fellowship, for example, and that's probably what a lot of people thought 2 or 3 years ago when we were starting Code for All, has morphed itself. So, you know, what it means to translate the Code for model is now becoming a really interesting question of, well, what does that mean to be Code for? And how do we actually, you know, the set of values that we all know we share, what does it actually look like when you're talking about how you programatize that or operationalize it? And so all of us, all 5 of the organizations that we represent have done this in different ways. And we selected the 4 other programs here because each of them has done something really innovative in taking the quote unquote Code for model and translating it to their country. So starting with Hal, you know, I don't think that people maybe fully got the extent of what your, you know, fellowship was doing, but Namie Town there's no one living there right now. It's not a physical space.
Yes.
Well, it is a physical space, but there are no people there. And the country, or the city, is literally connected through this tablet app. That's how they talk to each other. So when you had your resident who said he didn't know the meaning of life, but now he is connected to his granddaughter, that's because of a project that the fellows did. For me, I mean, I don't know that any of us have the context of that sort of disaster and building a program in response to such a profound disaster. You also at Code for Japan are doing this very innovative new program, which we'd love you to talk more about, which is the corporate program, which you alluded to. And I know that's in your presentation. So if you can hit on those 2 things in how you describe how you translated the Code for model to Japan, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we started Code for Japan as like Code for America's follower, like a follower, and we start the Brigade program. Brigade is growing, but it's totally non-profit project. So we need to be sustainable, and we started fellowship, but it's kind of the case of emergency. It's difficult to broad to normal local government. So we started Code for corporate fellowship.
And Namie is the only town where there is a fellowship.
Yes,
right now.
yes, that's right. So the Namie Town's fellowship is a difference between the Code for All model, Code for America model. Only 1 town we have, and first year we send 2 fellows, and this year only 1 fellow is working with the Namiya town. So, and fellows didn't develop applications, just help the public bidding process. And actually, the IT vendor developed the applications. So, and Fellows and Code for Japan team helped the citizen-centric development and public bidding process. And we started Code for Corporate Fellowship because it's difficult to get the budget from the local government yet. Still, we are talking with the official government officials, so maybe we can start near future. But it's easy to start corporate fellowship because government doesn't need to pay money. So, and instead of that, we charge to the companies for our coordination. And corporate companies send their staffs as fellows, and as a kind of the training program for the company. So it's it's easy to communicate with governments, and it's a good way to involve the corporate in our local activities for getting the sustainability, because we need to involve the companies for connecting the citizens and governments and kind of commercial companies, and it's one of funding option because we can charge.
How did you come up with the idea? Did you have people coming from companies to you and saying, I want to get involved, or?
Yes, we talked with a guy working for SAP Japan. I explained about the fellowship program and local brigade communities, and they asked me also, so what we can do for this civic tech scene. So I asked him to send fellows, but 1 year is too long for the company. So after discussion, the 3 months is suitable period for them. So I just tried. I tried once. We and SAP Japan tried to start the trial project for in other town. I explained in just one month trial project, and we found that it's worth. It's variable for the company. So,
it's very what for the company?
It's variable.
Oh, variable.
Variable for company. So we started officially from this year.
Got it. And right now it's working. It's running in Kobe.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And I introduced the Kobe mayor to Code for America.
He came to Code for America.
Yeah.
He didn't bring us any steaks, though. I was...
Kobe steak.
Yeah. We got... The tea was good, but steaks. Next time, steaks.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Julia, you a founding partner of Code for All, obviously, in Germany. And when you guys started, we selected the 3 initial partners to start Code for All with. We started with Caribbean, Mexico City, and Germany. And the Caribbean was a regional play in a place that's very rural and developing, but also pretty, relatively stable political scene. So a place we thought we could learn something about how this model translates. Mexico City, the biggest city in the Western Hemisphere, working through the city government. So that would give us a sense of like how this works when you're actually embedding fellows at the city level in a huge city that's bigger than 2/3 of the countries on the planet, which is crazy. And then there was Germany, which we all think of as like the highest functioning place on planet Earth, where like everything is efficient. And so my thinking, and I know this is naive now, but I was thinking, well, Germany's sort of our control group. If it can't work in Germany, then it just cannot work anywhere. So But you guys actually had more challenges getting government engaged in the work than any of the other programs. And so I thought it was really interesting how, and it was alluded to on one of the earlier panels, you guys really like buckled down on doing the fellowship for a long time. And I remember us being like, you guys, start somewhere else. Give up on the fellowship for now. Do something else. And you finally did, and it was really successful. So I'd love to hear about that from your perspective.
Sure. First, a big shout out to the Team Germany, who's here. Daniel, Fiona, Kai, Felix, Friedrich. So there's a couple of the Code for Germany folks in the audience. What you can see here on the monitors is new icon sets, some of the labs. So our model is similar to the Code for America Brigades model. We have labs all across Germany. It's 20 labs right now in cities all over Germany. Their main focus is open data, so they reuse local data and build civic tech tools. It's interesting, like they are very different. Hamburg, for example, has a focus on data journalism. Stuttgart does a lot around DIY sensors, air quality sensors. Munich is working with the city government. They just released a website that helps citizens to find information better about the council. So it's a great community. It's a truly community-run program. The labs meet on a regular basis, similar to the brigades. And as Catherine mentioned, is that an alarm?
Are we about to have a tornado or something? Oh, awesome. Is everyone getting like an Amber Alert on their phone right now? Sweet. Good thing we're on the second floor. Continue, Julia.
Okay. So this is what the program looks right now. The blue dots are focusing, the blue labs are focusing on citizen science projects. We just started a collaboration with the Ministry of Research and Education in Germany. They are supporting us with funding and help us to build up a citizen science focus. That's the status quo. The community grew quite fast, but as Catherine mentioned, our initial idea was to start with the fellowship program. And I have to elaborate a bit on that. So Code for Germany is a program by the Open Knowledge Foundation in Germany, and which has been around for almost 5 years now. We've been working on open data transparency. We've been running a lot of events, like hackathons, Germany's first app competition, a civic tech incubator. And after this events that only, like a hackathon is only a one-day event, right? You have a lot of energy, there's great ideas, and after the event, it's hard to keep the community together and to keep working on the project. So we thought, okay, it would be great to set up a program that is more sustainable. And that's why we set up the Brigades program. But before that, we were planning to run the fellowship program. That's when we got in touch with Catherine, like 2 years ago, maybe. 2.5 years ago. And we were so, we loved the concept. We were so focused on like writing a great concept for Germany. I remember like, Daniel, we spent like 6 months working on slide decks, the concepts. We traveled to cities, introduced the fellowship program to them. They also liked the concept and the program, the approach. But at a very like late stage, we found out about a major hurdle, procurement, because we wanted the cities to be involved, to have a stake in the process, which means that they pay also half of the costs, or they are also financially involved. So procurement was one of the major hurdles, and we had to decide, okay, are we going through this process? Are we waiting another year, or are we kickstarting with another program, another model? And that's what we went for with the brigades, and I'm really happy that we did that in retrospective, because there were a lot of civic tech groups in Germany around, but they were not connected, they did not have a platform, they were not exchanging a lot, they were not redeploying stuff, they were reinventing the wheel over and over again. So yeah, retrospectively, I'm very happy that we started with the brigades model and just engaged with community groups. It's important that you involve them right from the beginning. So we invited every civic tech change agent we knew to a meeting. Lynn and Hannah from Code for America joined us, and we asked them, hey, are you interested in setting up Code for Germany with us? And they were. We started with 8 labs, now we're 20. The next thing I'm working on right now is something similar to the Night Prototype Fund. So the question, okay, how can we help the labs to, how can we support them with funding? How can we help them to develop their prototypes and ideas further? And maybe one important thing I'd love to mention is that the value that we generate are not the apps, it's the network, it's growing relationships with governments, it's building trust. A lot of the cities already work with government. It's great to see how city officials call the lab and invite them over. North Rhine-Westphalia, a state in Germany, just hosted a round table, so brought in labs from the area and discussed their open data policy with them. And that's great to see that governments are reaching out to the labs and that the labs are the go-to partners when it comes to open data, open government, and civic tech.
Yeah, so you guys, you were having so much trouble getting government to, take the step that they needed to take in order to actually start doing the work with them. And just by starting to organize and work with volunteers instead has now kind of catalyzed government's imagination about what they could actually do with you. And if I can say, now you have government funding, right, for these citizen science projects in 4 of the lab cities. So, it was that just needing to get started doing some work in order to get government to see what was possible and then decide that they were willing to invest in it with money. So that should be a lesson to everyone who's running up against the we can't start until government funds us kind of thing. You just have to start building something now, and actually that will catalyze. Did you have slides after this one?
No, I don't think so.
Aren't these cute? I like the
oh yeah, the pretzel.
The pretzel, yeah, that's my favorite.
Catherine asked, why is there no beer on the Munich one?
Yeah.
Oh, Marx, what else do you want?
Okay, so Daniel, as I mentioned, working in Mexico City, which is the biggest city in the Western Hemisphere, 20 or 25 million people, depending on how you count. Matthew, how many people live in Jamaica? Okay, so let's say it's about 10 times larger than the entire island of Jamaica, population-wise. And you guys are a team of how many people?
We are right now 23 people, more or
okay,
less.
so whoever does the math, but it's some 0.001% of the entire population of Mexico City trying to spread civic innovation across the city through the mayor's office, through a lab established in the mayor's office. And one of the projects of the lab is Code for Mexico City, and we have been working with you guys since the beginning, and now you guys are about to launch your second fellowship. So maybe you can talk a little bit about the trajectory of how you thought about how do we create a program that works in a city of that size? What did you learn from it, and how are you going to use that to inform the next round of the fellowship?
Yeah, in that way, the lab started at the same time as the program, so it was more or less learning in the way of running the program. Actually, Oscar that is sitting there in the computer, and Pablo that is standing. They were used to work in the lab, and actually they were in the head of the first program. And in that way, it was for me more or less understanding backwards what it was supposed to have in the program, and also understanding the whole process from an external view, because when I entered the lab, I just saw the ending of it. So in some way I saw the benefits of it, and also the learnings from it. And I think if we put in the context of civic tech in Mexico City, I can dare to say that maybe it's more or less like 3 years old since the lab. I mean, it was really, really small. Talking about civic technology, open data is barely new, not as new as other countries could be, but I think right now it's like growing and growing so fast that having something like Codeando Mexico and Mexico City with their initiatives, the winners of our last hackathon, the city devs, and all the other in one place, building something to help the city to improve, and just for the sake of the good of the city. And that way, I start feeling like people get more identified with their city. And it's not like this cultural way of seeing government. I mean, the first time what I saw is more like people asking for the government to solve problems. And right now I can see young people trying to say, here's the solution, I want it implemented. It's not like just asking and asking in that way. And about the program, I feel like we learn more than maybe we could deploy within government. And but I think it also helps us to understand how the government sees civic technology and how what are the weaknesses of implementing within government.
What are the weaknesses?
I mean, it depends on every secretary, but for example, Verificado, made by Manuel Rabade, I think is one of the most success apps that was developed in the program.
So this was a tool from one of the first round of the fellowship, working with the transit agency.
And transit and environmental secretary.
Yeah, for people to register their cars and do all the things they needed to do related to their car. And
that's right. So since I entered the lab, we tried and we tried to push the agenda of having the secretary adopt the web app, but we were like in this slow road because the secretary is not as able to adopt the app because they don't have it in their agenda for example, and also they don't have the knowledge, like human resources that can maintain like the app running and stuff. That's something like they told me like really, really honest, like, man, we don't have any guy that can run the app. So maybe, I mean, it's more or less like it was developed outside and we tried to push it forward through the secretary maybe in a strong way. But right now we are working with them of how we can rethink the app with more secretaries now understanding that they see us like a co-worker instead of someone that tries to pull something into it. And in that way, they feel more confident that in the end of the app, because we are rebooting in some way the app with them, they will be able to at least have the knowledge to maintain the app. Because right now, it lives outside the secretary and it's maintained by Manuel Rabadi and by us and the lab. So in that way, I think one of the weaknesses is that if you don't start with the secretary thinking about how the plan is of the adoption, at the end they will say like, sorry, we can't. So every year, every secretary plans their year and they change it every time they can. So for the second round of the program, we will try to negotiate before running the program with the secretaries. So
you have new secretary?
Yeah, we change it because we want to keep it like trying to spread the word, try to change culture within government, because something that it's beneficial, at least for the last ones, the last secretaries, is that we at least put some champions on it, I think if you want to try to make some change within government, you first need to find those champions that will work harder and they will do more as government asks. So in that way, finding them is the first step, because they will give you all the information you need. They will give you all the knowledge of how you will understand the secretary. And then you need to work with their heads, right?
Yeah.
You need to work how they will allow this champion to work with you, and then you can establish with them a route, and you can establish with them a project where it ends implemented as you want. Actually, a very good example of it was with the last hackathon we did. At the end of the hackathon, the major gave this award to the winning teams, and in their speech, he said that he will implement the apps that won the hackathon. In that way, they gives you like this backup to just
Mayor
go.
said that.
Yep.
In public, on camera.
Yeah, and all the newspapers made like in bold, like we will implement it. So it gave them the arms to go to the secretary and tell the mayor said this, so it should be done.
I think it's really interesting, and Matthew ran out of the room, I think, but that you took the approach that it's very important to start with new agencies instead of going back to the ones you were working with initially to like crank the wheel one more time, because in a city, maybe it's because of the size of the city, having more people who are sort of infected with this idea is better than going really deep into one area, as is happening in Jamaica. Like Matthew and his team have been working on agriculture for 3.5 years and they have done nothing else. And so it's an interesting idea to think about, you know, the different approaches we take based on the context, this idea of spreading broad to get the message out as far as possible in order to create sustainability versus going really deep in one issue. So when he comes back, we'll, or we can just shame him for never coming back into the room during this panel. Someone tweet at him like, hey Matthew, someone just called your name and you weren't there. Anyway, on to Ivonne, who, as you guys all know, runs Code for the Netherlands. We met through Code for Europe, which was sort of a precursor to Code for All and was running as a program before Code for All even started, and actually was one of the catalysts for us to actually start Code for All in the first place. That in and of itself was an interesting model of trying to do this at that continent level. And now, thinking like maybe that was too broad, and now you guys have narrowed down the next version of your program as of part of Code for Europe as being at the country level. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about how that worked at the continent level and why you now are focusing more at the country level with Code for the Netherlands.
Yes. Well, I think very practically, the European level started from just a European project being funded on civic technology. It had a couple of different elements to it, and one of it was trying to experiment with the Code for model. And we called it Code for Europe, but there were, I think, 6 or 7 cities at that time involved. And some of them have experimented with the fellow model and it just didn't quite fit. I personally feel that like it was, for instance, in Rome and in Barcelona. The fellowship itself, I thought was pretty successful, but they just didn't have the organizational structure in place to support it long term. But in Finland, it's embedded in a long-term program. In Scotland, it's been very successful, in the Netherlands as well. So I think always the ambition was to have it at a city, at a country level, just because you know all the pitfalls of your own governmental structure. And the European umbrella was more of a way of sharing knowledge, experience, learnings, really just to learn from each other, and also give the fellows a more international perspective that work in the program, so that they were able to, connect to each other, have combined training opportunities, and that's the element that we kept in place. So currently, Code for Europe is just like a placeholder for the partners in Europe to sort of keep each other informed about the activities that they're doing, and see if we can maybe also try to get some joint sponsorship or some joint funding, and at least try to get the fellows connected on a European level, just because it's easier to travel from Germany to Netherlands than it is to travel to America. So I think so. It wasn't as successful for every country that participated. In the Netherlands, we did manage to make it sustainable because we as VAC Society feel it is a strong model that connects to a lot of other programs that we do. And we managed to keep the cost of the fellowship pretty low. So the fellowship currently is just very practically, it's 9 months for the fellow. They get paid 35,000 euros, which is in salary terms in the Netherlands, just a normal salary you would get if you were to work at government. And you have to work a minimum of 4 days, and sort of that's where the negotiation happens. Because if you're a freelance coder in the Netherlands, you can definitely make like 3 or 4 times that amount of money. We try to engage people on the from the civic hacker community to have them participate. It's been much easier to get people from the Amsterdam region, just because many more people are living there that are in this community. And I'm currently still looking for 2 of the 3 fellows for Eindhoven, which is a more to the province side. They have a really huge tech community as well, because they have a huge tech university there. But it's like Philips. I don't know if that. Yeah, that's a big. Eindhoven is Philips, you can say. So they have a huge tech campus, and it's much more commercial there. And just the civic tech community there isn't as big. So we're working on, connecting to them. So 35,000 euros for a fellow, and then you have just a little bit of overhead for the training that we provide, which can be anywhere from like 15,000 euros to 35,000 euros, just depending on the amount of training or things that you want. There's some travel budget in there as well. So in Amsterdam we're doing that ourselves as the VAG, but in Eindhoven we're working together with other civic organizations to help us with that.
And is government paying for the program?
Government is paying for that. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. So I think. That for us that's essential for being able to do this program, because we need funding. We cannot pay the fellows. We need funding to have them pay. And I think because having this trial run through the European project, which was fully funded, helped get the attention and get the showcases that we needed in order to get these other cities now to pay for the fellowships. And I'm positive that just having these fellows will make sure we get many more fellows next year. So it's really having a catalyst function in that sense. Yeah.
Okay, I want to make sure we bring you guys in, and I know there are other models of, Code 4. I'm still kind of struggling. I would like, hoping to kind of get to the end of this panel with some sense of like, what does it mean to be a Code 4 program when you're talking about how the program is actually structured? And we've heard a lot about the fellowship, but if I'm being honest, from a Code for America perspective, that's actually less and less of the centerpiece of what we do as an organization going forward. And the fellowship, we'll probably be working in less cities than we typically have through a fellowship next year. They will be very tied into the focus areas that Jen talked to before, so they're very much integrated into a larger theory of change. So when we're thinking about like, what do, we don't do the fellowship. We are applying certain principles and practices and products inside government. So what does it mean? How do we structure that? How do we approach that work in other countries that doesn't necessarily have to look like the fellowship? And how do we get people out of the mindset that if they want to do a Code 4 program, they start with a fellowship, they start with a brigade? And so I don't really know how that's a question, but it's on my mind, and I would love to hear what other folks think or what other folks want to talk about. So I think I'm going to run around because oh, you got a mic? I just wanted to run around, but I can do that, right? I can. All right, well, I'll sit here for now.
Hi, this is Noel from Beta NYC, one of the brigades. One of the challenges that we have as brigades is understanding budgets and kind of like business models. And so part of the unconference tomorrow, I hope to have a session around budgets and business models. But I would love to, I don't know, where is the safe space that we can kind of uncloak all the things that we've been working on, so that way we can see what's working in those different cities, and then maybe fork and then remix, mash up, and then deploy in other cities. Because I'm having a hard time seeing the difference between Code for All and the CFA brigades. I really see that there's so much overlap that we should be sharing, and I really want to take all of these best practices, but I need to get into the details that are working in these cities.
That's a really great question. Let's talk about business models. So Hal, the corporate partnership thing is sort of an ingenious way to get corporations to pay for the program in places where government can't. So can you talk a little bit about how that payment and business model is structured?
Yes. Currently, fellowship is similar to Code for America model. Government pays, government hire the people, and we help them, and we get from government. And corporate fellowship is what I already mentioned.
Yep.
And brigade, about the brigade, they I think in Japan Code for Japan and brigade is more relationship between the Code of Japan and brigade more narrow than Code of America.
So they're more independent?
Yeah, more independent. Some of brigades operated. Brigade is have a business model. Gathering the people and trying to civic tech things and get funding from the local foundation.
Do any of the brigades have like a membership where the members pay money?
No, I think there is no brigades that get the fee from members.
Because Noel, you guys are trying to do a membership model, or that was on the table at some point?
We want to.
Yeah.
But there's no
Interesting.
easy platform for it. Sustainable membership is
Like taking monthly donut dues or whatever. Yeah.
So
On the corporate partnership or fellowship model, though, I think it's ingenious. You charge the companies to give you their human resources.
yeah.
And it works. So is it like a marketing thing for the companies? You talk to the marketing department, or
Depend on the company. Of course, we talking with the marketing division and CSR or
corporate social responsibility.
yes.
Yep.
Or human resource
Human
development. Yeah, it's depend on company. Yes. And about brigade business model, one of our brigades started to build the crowdfunding site, their own, and the website is started in Yokohama City and Local Good Yokohama, and they collect the local issues from the citizens and put the project, student-based project on the website, and the citizens pay for the project.
And that funds the brigade program there.
Yes.
Are there other, so Julia, do you want to talk about the funding you did get from government, which is based around, it's from the science
From
ministry?
the Ministry of Research and Education. Yeah.
Is it public? Can we be talking about it? Or?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
sorry.
totally public. Yeah, you can read our transparency report and see how much we got. Yeah, they have, each year they have the Year of Science, and this year the Year of Science has the topic City of the Future, and that fits very well to what the labs are doing. So they are focusing our citizen science focus. We're working on DIY sensoring, we're counting bikes in Karlsruhe and Stuttgart. So yeah, we're trying to, with the citizen science focus, not only collaborate with governments, but also to get science institutions on board and other NGOs that are in the ecosystem, like small local NGOs that have been working on, let's say, air pollution in Stuttgart, and we're trying to get them on board and connect them with the labs, because I think that's crucial to not only focus on government and also to not like stay in your bubble, but to connect with the ecosystem that's around you, and to help them out with tech skills. Because what I see a lot is like at the meetups, techies and designers get together and they're like, okay, we are ready to code. What are we gonna do now? So sometimes they lack problems. They then just go to the data portal, find the data set and build something. And once it's finished, they're like, oh, and now we have to find the users. And that's the wrong way, right? I mean, and that's what I see a lot. So yeah, why not get in touch with local NGOs and ask them what problems are you focusing on and where do you need support? So, yeah.
What are some other business models that people have seen that are working to fund this kind of work that isn't a foundation or like traditional philanthropy model, or depending on government to pay the bill? Yeah, Dennis.
We do crowdfunding in Ukraine. So basically, you cannot fund programs, but you can fund small things, like, for example, reconstruction or reformation of a certain part of the city with very concrete deliverables. And people are happy to basically share their own cash. And we also have the experience of funding government projects by the corporate sector, but the money streams are coming through the NGO. So basically, it's like you did that in Germany with the ministry, but we have the same cooperation, but not the ministry pays us, but rather we pay the ministry, and we are being provided by funds from the commercial sector, because the ministry claims that they definitely have this need, and the NGO is happy to support this. So it's working vice versa. And also, we have had some cooperation with the social entrepreneurs, which means the CSR money from small and medium-sized enterprises, which are happy to do something with transport or something like that. So basically, they donate like 10% from their operations on the needs of the NGO, and then NGO cooperates with the government to create the mutual value.
I have one particular case. It's because that the data science program that I mentioned, we give some, we actually get government pay us because we did some tricks before, because the program was, if you are coming from the enterprise background or non-profit background, you have to pay for our data science training course. But if you are coming from the government, you don't have to pay. So that's why we get a huge list of inside champions within the government. So by identifying that list, we know how to manage to get some funding from the government for the next or the years beyond. That's one of the tricks we do. So if you are applying for the courses with .gov.tw email alias, so you're going to get a course for free. So we get a huge list of inside champions. Yeah.
Got it. Sure.
Hi. So partially answering your question about business models, in Israel, we don't have, we have like 2 employees working half-time. We don't have much money, and the money we have is mainly from philanthropy. We don't get anything from the government or corporations.
You have what?
We don't have anything, we don't get any money from the government. So, but we do have like 50 to 100 people that are volunteering on a weekly basis, giving a couple of hours every week on about 20 different projects. And the secret to do that is we don't pay anything to the volunteers. And the interesting thing is that we found out that actually paying developers is like a sure way to kill a project. Because once you start paying developers, other volunteers won't come to the same project, won't come to work on that project. And I think that there is some value in knowing that you work for, you know, for the better cause and not for money. And this actually gives motivation to people to work on the project. So it's somehow counterintuitive, but it works. So you know.
You're Mr. Counterintuitive today. All of the controversial counterintuitive.
That used to be my middle name. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I hear that though. Like, once you introduce money into the equation, it changes the dynamic of the project. And how do you protect the thing you're actually trying to do without fully commercializing it is a struggle. And I think we talked about this a lot yesterday with the brigades. Some of the brigades who are looking to kind of spin out, become institutions of their own. What does it mean for them to go beyond that volunteer work? So that's really interesting. Justin, okay, so over here and then Justin.
I have 2 examples and one quick comment. One of the examples are from Hungary. I don't know how successful it was, but I know that people, and that's another crowdfunding project, people gave money for investigative stories. And it might be a bit different from the overall Code for All mission, but it's really, really relevant for the civic hacking community. So people knew about investigative projects and they could crowdfund, they could give money to specific projects. But then what happened in a lot of cases is that companies gave a lot of money to investigations about competing companies. So that kind of crowdfunding process can be hijacked too in a lot of circumstances. And then another example that I have is from Canada. I know that Open North, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Open North. They have done participatory budgeting, and I think what they did was they sold their platform for local governments, and they actually created a pretty sustainable business model out of that. And then my comment, lastly, is that I think a lot of what we're doing here just does not have a business model at all, and that's fine. And it might be bad news for Stacy and all the funders, but I think a lot of the issues that we're working on are just never going to be, profitable at all. Like, we're talking about human rights issues, fundamental human rights, corruption, influence, etc. That's just not profitable at all, and that's okay. So a lot of the watchdog role that we have here is not going to be funded by corporations or governments, and that's about it. That's how civil society works.
Thanks. So we work a lot with the private sector because we were initially partially funded by them, and we're not actually scared of building things that should make money. The code and the data should always be a public good, but the value add that people can use bringing to that, they should be rewarded for. And one of the reasons for that is that we're small organizations that do experiments. You don't want albatrosses around your neck. You build things that are great, and then you've got to plow all of your resources into just keeping them running, because now you've created an expectation. So what we try and do is, when we do partnerships, even if it's using government data, we know, and you've heard stories this morning about governments will cooperate, but the moment that the active kind of support ends, the project kind of becomes a zombie. So what we rather try and do is find people outside of governments who find value in that information. So I showed a very brief example this morning of that dodgy doctor information. That's taking information from a government agency in Kenya. And then what we did was we found a newspaper which has a large audience, but they struggle to give them real information that people can use. We built it for the newspaper. They had to put down matching funding, dollar for dollar, what we put into the project. And then they had to give us a commitment that they would curate and maintain it afterwards. We deliberately built it as an SMS tool. So that's because SMSs cost money. It's a micropayment, but every time someone does a lookup, it's a premium SMS. And those 80,000 people that use it per month are generating enough money for them to employ someone to maintain and run that project internally and still make a very small, modest profit off it. And as a result, that product we can now walk away from and it continues working. ID in South Africa had a similar experiment where they built the medicine lookup tool. A media company has offered to buy it from them. And they said, no, it's free, take it. And it's like they really want to pay for it. So there is, even though we build things for social good, there are often people who see that as a value-added service that they can give the wider public. And it means that they take the burden of actually maintaining it. I think we need to always design products that we can walk away from. Where we've had some of our biggest failures is thinking that we can create products and then spin those into startups. And the reality is that kind of the data geeks and the activists are terrible entrepreneurs. So rather, and also a product isn't a company, or a service is not a company. So rather try and find and embed that service or product into a larger organization that's got a bigger picture, and it's got a limited shelf life. These things kind of last for a year or 2 years, and then the data changes or the need changes in society. So I think we just need to kind of more kind of aggressively and more kind of consciously plan to have these things embedded into other organizations, plan to almost like give them away. And that solves some of the business model problem.
Yeah, and that goes back to what Julia said about not thinking about that after you've built the thing you think you should build, but like thinking and being intentional about those partnerships from the very beginning.
Yeah, and managing the expectations right? Because 80% what the Code for Germany labs build are experiments. We're testing stuff, it's a proof of concept, it's not a killer app that's gonna have like thousands of users within a year. So to say that, to be upfront with that and to like manage the expectations right is, I think, very important too. Fiona even changed her job title to expectation manager.
That's a great job title. Yeah. So Noel, does that get, so will you, or can I put you on the spot to volunteer you to lead or co-lead a session tomorrow at the Unconference to talk more about like how do we create sustainable business models, memberships or products, selling products, philanthropy, the whole thing? Great. So we filled one of the slots on the Unconference, yay. What other questions are there? Do you have one? Here? Oh, wait, did you see someone over here? Okay.
Hi, I'm Maria from the GovLab. I'm from Chile. And my question is if you have advice on starting a new code for in the country. What kind of advice would you give now looking back? Somebody who's thinking about it.
Yeah, oh, that's such a good question. You work for government or for?
I work for GovLab, but I'm in the US only 2 years.
Okay. Well, I think key is to find the community locally that needs to be a part of the Code 4 and start with them. Just there are, anywhere where you want to start. I think Code 4 is definitely something you cannot start when there is no civic tech community at all. Like if a city is still in the early hackathon stage, where the community is first finding each other, I think there has to be some maturity on the level of knowledgeability on data and the community coming together in local meetups. And if there's a sort of so if that's sort of already, how would you say, blossoming or something, that's the ideal situation to start a Code 4, because then it sort of channels the energy of the different parts of the necessary communities into a structured program that they can get involved in and actually work towards a specific result. Because I don't fully agree with what was just said, like that if you put money into it, it will kill a project. I think if you put money into the right thing, then it will bring focus to a project and help it attract the right people, also from higher, if somebody has to pay for it, they will pay attention to what is being made. So if somebody higher up in government has to then sign off on this type of program, they will want to be informed and involved on what is happening, what is coming out of it. So it brings sort of focus to a community that is working on probably already a wide range of different civic tech applications.
Yeah, and we, I think the first, hold a meeting, hold an event. And we, I think in this community, disparage the idea of a hackathon a lot. Like we just roll our eyes and say someone's hosting another hackathon. But if it's tied into we're gonna do something else with this afterwards, or this isn't just the be all and end all, but it's really used to galvanize the community to come out and organize around a thing, then it can be a really effective way to start a program. And Daniel, you guys, and looking at Oscar too, have been really successful at holding large events in Mexico City to grow the community and then get people hooked into Codeando Mexico or applying for the fellowship. Maybe you can talk about the way that hackathons fit into the model that you guys
Yep.
use.
I think how I see at least hackathons in Mexico City is just like a celebration of having more data to work on. But it's also like this chance once a year where the community feels identified. I mean, having 600 people at the same spot trying to build something to help the city. At the end, if they don't even know each other, at the end they will maybe found a startup or something, or they will gather together to finish their work. It doesn't matter if they won or not. We have examples of people that meet each other in the hackathons, and now they are running a startup. So in that way, at the end, this startup is more like maybe a social business model where they use the data of the city and they make money. So to be sustainable. Mm-hmm. And Codeando Mexico also works with the Hack Nights once in a year. And I think, at least the last experience we have, we try to introduce people from government in these hack nights, that it's a couple hours hacking. And something like came up is like this guy that is really, really a champion in that way. Because even though it was like, it was not our office, he was there trying to convince people to work in a new tool that helped government to open more data. And he was convinced that it was really, really easy to use and a hanging fruit of how you can easily open data. And he was surprising for me because even though it's sometimes difficult to find the community, if you put something there, at the end they will feel attracted and they will go to the events and they will show up. Like this guy, even though it's not his work, like going to events and try to convince people to open data.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to add to that, Oscar?
I think using Mexico City as an example is kind of unfair to every other city because we're so big that you can get 1,000 people together very easily. So I think it's more about to start something or to build something around a hackathon, you have to find out what it's for and not make it about the technology. Mm-hmm. But make it about, I don't know, it depends on what your city's issues are or what, if it's along with government, if it's about data, what will that data be used for offline, right? Or what it's used before the hackathon for, what it's used for before the hackathon. So I think, I don't know, I don't love hackathons, but if you have a very clear image of what you want to achieve with that, even if it's just getting people to know each other and getting them to know other organizations. What we're doing now is getting, with Codeando Mexico, is getting other NGOs that are non-tech at all and pairing them with the technologists in the cities so that they can actually build something useful and make the work of NGOs more effective instead of trying to figure out what the problems are, because they already